back there? Yeah. Frank Varon, up to the stage. Frank, I learn from Frank every time I'm with him. He's trained thousands of people to success lifestyles within our business. He's got about 70 plus ambassadors in just a short time, with a top paid, him and his wife, top paid ambassadors for very good reason. He's here because he cares. And he understands the deeper fundamentals of what really drives success with our business. And he's here for it. So I want you just to really open your minds, your hearts, listen. I promise that it can make you wealthy. I did the same thing, and it's definitely enhanced my life and helped transform the wealth of a lot of people I care about. So with that, Frank, thanks for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, the amazing. I have to confess that sometime in the last 2 hours, I became a little overwhelmed. I became overwhelmed because I realized that in the 15 years I've been doing this, the privilege of it, the ability to speak to and communicate my passions with hundreds of thousands of people over the last 15 years, that for the first time in my life, something remarkable was about to occur. And it's going to happen in this room. It's going to happen in the next 20 minutes or so. I don't say this lightly. When it started to occur to me just what a remarkable point in time we were all in this day, in this room, it just hit me. I was walking outside trying to grasp the importance of this moment. My buddy Cedric came over and said, "Are you focusing, Frank?" And quite honestly, after doing it for 15 years, you learn to focus. No, I was trying to evaluate how powerful a moment this is. Because if you have a passion to communicate, if you have the privilege, then the reward is hopefully being able to touch a life. Being able to share a thought that will help someone and guide them in their future. And what is so remarkable about today is that if you guys can get what I'm going to share with you for the next 20 minutes, if only half of you get it, I will probably have achieved the biggest milestone in my life. Because that half is going to walk out of this room today as future millionaires. So I'm going to beg you to listen to what I'm going to say. This has never happened to me before. I'm almost 56 years old. And I'm shaking with excitement. The first thing I need to do is share with you a little bit about me. I want you to understand that when it comes to certain things, I actually know what I'm talking about. When it comes to this industry, I know what I'm talking about. So let me tell you a little bit about me. And then we'll get into what is so remarkable. I'm an old corporate guy. Mid-70s MBA. When I started, my uncle had a big firm on Wall Street. I became a corporate raider. It was something I loved to do. It was a very aggressive thing to do. It was was like charging 24 hours a day. And later I became a turnaround specialist, which in a nutshell means you take a sick company, you fix it, and then you sell it. And I loved to do that. Very creative. Not all elements of business allow creativity. Almost artistry, where you can see something in a stage and understand what ultimately can look like later on. And I had the privilege of doing it 9 times in my 24-and-a-half-year career. The CEO and the owner-operator of 9 mid to large-sized companies. 2 of them were over 3,500 employees. And I had success with all of those companies. 2 of them were sensational. One of those 2 was the last company that I sold in 1998. And I found myself in a position of being 42 years old, having 4 children under the age of 12, and never having to go back to work again. Achieving what most people can only dream to achieve. That was my good fortune. But I couldn't retire. I had to find something to do. But the first promise I made was to my children, because although I had been a good provider, I was absent a great deal. And the promise was that I was going to spend a year with them. That was June of 1998. I'm going to do a quick sidebar because this is element number 1 in what's so remarkable today. I was born in Montreal, but I have 2 homes. I'm a dual citizen. And at the age of 6 months, I spent half of every single year living in Florida, Miami Beach. 2 homes. I went to Biscayne Elementary, I went to Miami Beach High, I went to University of Miami, and I went to the reciprocal schools in Canada as well. A very privileged, extremely unusual upbringing, because at 6 months of age I was coming here. My parents were both my parents were PhDs. My parents were the precursor to what we call snowbirds. It didn't exist in those days, but they understood how to do it. And so I sold that company in June. I was living in Montreal, and in September I was introduced to a fellow who lived in Doral. I'm in Canada, he's here. And the premise of the introduction was that he was a vice president of a telecommunications company, an industry that I understood. I just sold a telecom company. They were expanding into Canada looking for partners. So I was interested in speaking to him. This is September of 1998. And I get this dynamic fellow on the phone who's talking to me about everything but telecom. And I realize within 2 to 3 minutes that he's pitching me on network marketing. And it's like one of those OMG minutes. I can't believe it. You must be flipping kidding me. Network marketing is for people that can't have a real career. That's what I always thought. The problem was, I'm on the phone and I can't just hang up. Because it was a dear family member that had made this introduction unknowingly, thinking that it was a telecom deal, not a network marketing long-distance company out of Dallas. So I couldn't just hang up. So I very cleverly thought of a question to ask. And I realized this question would create my freedom from this conversation that I did not want to have with this fellow. And I asked him simply, how long have you been involved? How much money do you make? In a nicer way, but it was very direct. That way you can answer my question. I can say, thank you very much. It's not for me. Have a great day. But he tells me that his wife had started their business in 1996 in the summer. They'd been a former VP of RCA. He'd been involved now 9 months full-time working with her from home raising babies. They'd had better months, but they were earning $45,000 a month. 1998. A lot of money by today's standards, even more so then. And that was the first, wait a minute, moment. You're a VP of RCA. I'm a CEO. I don't care what you think you can do. I know I can do better. So, I was intrigued. And I had to find out what he was doing. So I came down, spent 2 days, and I liked it. And I figured, you know what? I've got nothing else to do. Let me try it. But not now. Promised the kids to take some time off. I will start in the spring of '99. And there's a reason I'm telling you this whole story, guys. A very important reason. The spring of 1999. So in February of '99, I assembled a troop of 24 people to join me in this business that we were going to launch on March 1st, 1999. 24 people. 21 were former employees and managers. Some had worked over 20 years for me. 2 were friends, and 1 cousin. The only thing that we all had in common is not one of us knew what we were doing. Not one. But this fellow here agreed to come up and start and help launch the business. And he did that. And much to everybody's shock and amazement, it worked. And that group of 24 people on March 1st, '99, within 6 years grew into an organization of over 76,000 people. And we're all promoters here today. I'm going to talk numbers specific. It generated just under $7 million for my family. This was my first attempt at network marketing. I felt pretty good. I actually felt like I'd stepped up to the plate, swung at the first pitch, and knocked it right out of the park, and it was just another validation that a CEO can do anything that a VP can do and better. But what it changed was the way I would earn money for the rest of its life, and more importantly, what it changed was the lifestyle of my family. Everything for the better. And folks, as good as that was, and it was remarkable, it was incredible, as good as it was, we missed the boat. What? $7 million in 6 years and you missed the boat? It's not to sound ungrateful. We were very privileged and very blessed, but it's factual. Because we missed the momentum phase of that company. It had occurred 6 years before we got involved. From 1993 to 1996, it made history. It's a company that grew from 31 million to 1.4 billion in less than 900 days. Forbes declared it the fastest growing company in America because it reached $1 billion in half the time of Microsoft, but more importantly to me, there were guys involved, and gals, in the company at that time, and simply because they were in the right place at the right time, achieved something remarkable. They actually did less than what we did. But some of them earned over $1 million a month, if you could imagine such a crazy amount of money. So I always wondered what might have happened had we started 6 years earlier and caught that time. So that's going to flash forward us today to where we are. Visalus, as you know, is an 8-year-old company. that truly started to explode 2.5 years ago. Run rate in 2010 went from 20 to 100 million. Companies all across America were doing the same thing, right? But nobody heard of us. Just started to warm up. July of last year, 200 million. November, 400 million. Now we're almost $750 million, on our way to $1 billion. A company that's grown from $1 million a month to 60+ million a month in the last 27 months. That's not happening anywhere in the world. Why is this happening? Now I'm going to talk about some certain things here, guys. We're talking about stage 1 of growth, hitting $1 billion. Stage 2, depending on who you talk to, 5 to 10 billion in the next 5 to 7 years as we go global. There's no company in the world. I mean, these are numbers that are stratosphere. I talked to a CEO the other day, a company doing $78 million, and I shared with him what we're doing. His jaw was on the table. He'd go, what? That's what executives say when they see it. They go, what? How is that possible? Well, one of the reasons is the acquisition of Visalus by Blythe. We see that video all the time. We've partnered with Blythe. It's actually going to be a complete purchase of Visalus. And most people don't know really what Blythe represents. They've been around for decades. It's a multi-billion-dollar multinational. They're traded on the New York Exchange. They do $1.7 billion a year. And they were able, through the acquisition, because of their pedigree, because of their credibility, to be able to harvest the best people in the industry. We're in a position to pick and choose. And the best in the industry are lining up to get in. Why? Well, for those of us that understand business, if you're a chief anything officer, right? CFO, CIO, CTO, CI, etc. You want to be part of a company growing from $750 million to a potential $10 billion because of something called stock options. We read about it in the newspapers. Guy comes in, works for a company for several years, and he walks away with tens of millions of dollars. The same thing is happening here. It's about timing. And yet nobody's heard about us. There's special dynamics occurring here, folks. Special dynamics. Do you know in only 2.5 years, Visalus has become the crown jewel of Blythe? The fastest growing, most profitable division in their over 3-decade history. We have a parent company with unlimited money for us. I can't put the number on it. It's billions. Much more than we'll ever need. And it's all hands on deck. Every resource is focused on Visalus and its future. And I've heard about a preliminary 20-year game plan, and they're deciding just how many countries we're going to be going into.
Yeah!